This is built in less than 2 days from receiving it internationally, and we're gonna see if our billet engine fires up. Yes! Yes! Oh my God! I turned it off. That was the first fire ever. This is one of the most expensive things, most uncertain things on one of the most critical parts of an engine. This is turning a standard rotary into a dry sump oil system. A dry sump implying a very weird specific thing that doesn't make sense because technically it's all still wet. The oil pan keeps as little oil in it as possible. It's constantly being vacuumed. This is more of a traditional front cover, pumps it out of the pan and then through coolers and back into the engine. Very simple system, very effective system. This is a very expensive way to solve a very small problem. This straw that is sucking this up, as soon as you take a turn, if that doesn't pick up oil, if it picks up air, that air goes into your engine as lubricant. Air does not lubricate well at all. So the concept here is that you split those two things up. Pump inside of here that's vacuuming out the oil pan, and then dumping that oil and frothy air into a tank. It is just a vacuum system. They call it scavenge, which is a good word for it, honestly, because it's just like, let me just grab whatever's in here and then dump it into a big, huge tank. A tank is more vertical, typically. So when you slosh, the base of it stays pretty much full with solid oil, and you have a lot of like baffles inside of that to help break up the air. That then goes to the front half of this. This piece that's machined here has two ports. They are not connected. Think of like a turbocharger, the exhaust side and the intake side. Both sides have an in and an out. Let's take a look at what's under this front cover. There is the pressure side.
That's cool.
Yes, it's copper bearings.
It's definitely bigger.
Yeah, it's considerably. Now we can measure it, or he might have the specs on it, but one of the ways that a lot of people measure oil pumps is by length, or depth, 22 millimeters. So on the other side, I've already disassembled part of the scavengers, and so you can see as the teeth close in on each other, they're creating minimal volume. So then when they come around this way, there's oil slung through the open teeth on the outer ring. So it actually spins this way. So there's no oil in the middle, and then it's being pulled around the outer edges into this middle area, and it's being squeezed up and out. And so there are two that look similar, but they're shorter. There's more being pumped out of the engine. Why? Well, engines are not perfect. And in fact, engines have a lot of blow-by, especially race engines. Air and gasoline, exhaust, all of that is being thrown into your oil system. That's interesting. I'm not gonna say that's bad, because this is like a holier than thou thing. It's gonna flow a shit ton of oil, but this is feed to the pump and this is return. I would have centered those, because even the fitting that's gonna go in here will have an insert side diameter. It's not a huge deal. He beveled that edge. This is, like I said, the 22 millimeter version. He created an even larger version because of the need that I have and others for more. There is the front cover back up and running. I'm gonna be doing something a little different on this one. I'm going to be changing this out. I'm not gonna talk too much about what I think it is or isn't, but I'm gonna change this out because of what I've been doing with something that looks identical. Even their model numbers are virtually identical. They're made by the same company, but there's just a zero in a different spot. This definitely changes everything up here, and I'm doing a test fit right now, but what you're going to notice, none of this is necessary anymore. The pickup, the pump side, and then this going out through here, going out through the front cover. A couple things to notice. This front cover does not have a front bearing in it. E&J makes a front bearing that we'll put inside there. Now, pretty cool looking. A couple concerns I have are the belt. His way of doing the timing and all that is all off of this area. This sticks out so much further than I thought it did, and the belt would have to be out here. I got a lot of shit to deal with, but this is the first look of what it looks like to have the dry sump system contained in the front of the engine. The biggest benefit of going dry sump is the oil pan. That's a very shallow oil pan. This is very impressive.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks great. very first thing that you're gonna notice,
It doesn't fit.
because that's the wet sump setup. You don't check oil this way anymore. You still have to plug this, because otherwise all the air is gonna come through that and it won't produce a vacuum. These two things basically connect to this area and this area, and there's channels machined out for those. This is the lifeblood of my cars. I only use the full synthetic version of VR1 for the 4-rotor, just because I want to prove to people that the traditional version, the one that you can buy off the shelf, it makes way more horsepower than you'd ever imagine, and it has no problems. But we are going to be switching to the alien blue full synthetic VR1 2050 for the 3-rotor. Why? Is that this will scavenge a couple more horsepower. And how does it do that? Less friction. All oil like dreams of being like this, which is minimizing friction and really creating that nice boundary layer to have all of your stuff not contact metal on metal. One of these quarts doesn't really get me very far, and in fact on this car I think it uses 4 quarts. It uses 2 gallons of oil, and that's all sitting underneath the engine. Well, that is no more. The engine is now sitting lower in the car, but this oil has to sit somewhere. And why not have a little bit more of that extra special something? That's where the dry sump tank comes into play. I commissioned ARA. He did the works on this one. And this isn't like special to me per se, but it's all of his options done right. Crack open a cold one.
That's a big cap too.
All aluminum, all TIG welded. He's got all the wild baffles and things to really prevent aeration in the oil. And I will tell you guys what, something that blows my mind, I didn't know that other oils have this problem. This does not foam. My goodness, I saw somebody else running a dry sump tank and it was basically like frothy milkshake. But Valvoline, I've never had to do a spin trick. I've never had to do any of the special things, partially because oil and air froth will come in at this angle. It'll spin around the outside edge, popping a lot of the bubbles. And so I do also credit it to the ARA tank. This is a 3-gallon dry sump tank. You basically now have just over 2 gallons of oil, because you don't want it sitting above this. Another really nice thing about the way he does this is that all the sediment and weird stuff that might collect, the really hard contaminants would go to the bottom here, and you can actually put, if this one isn't, but you can put a little magnetic plug on the bottom of this. You might ask, where's this going? So let's try and find a spot together. Originally my dream that we would have more of a stubby one, and it would sit in that corner back there. A couple problems arise. One is that it's now going to be a high center of mass. All of the exhaust and turbo just right there. That just seems, okay, cool, we're adding tons of heat to this. So we're gonna get a little fancy with this, but one of the things, and I'm gonna credit my friend Sean Bassett with stealing this from him, who he's probably borrowed that from somebody else. While Jesus might be my co-pilot, in this case, it's going to be a lot of oil. And I'm thinking it'll be something kind of like this, probably where we can still put a passenger seat in. I think we're gonna do some really cool things with getting oil in and out of the car and safely routed through the car without exposing it to even more heat. The downside to having a lot more oil is that it takes longer for it to warm up. Well, with the quality of VR1, I've ran my oil really cold and my bearings haven't paid the price for that. What this will give me is a longer run up the mountain. The oil mass, it's kind of like a capacitor. It won't let the oil heat up as quick, and then once it's all up to temperature, then we're in trouble. We need to tunnel a hole through the front frame rail, and Isaiah has created just that. The structure inside of here isn't as important. It's still important, but we've over-strengthened everything else. So we are going to put 2 tubes that are going to go through here for the oil return and feed to the tank, but there's a lot of shit in the way. This is very, very exciting to see something that you dream of come to reality. This is one of my personal favorite cheat codes. It took a lot of work because there's a lot of shit inside of here, but without how we have it all over reinforced, we're gonna be good. These are the oil lines to the dry sump tank. Fat one feeds the oil to the front. So the wider it is, the less restriction. Thankfully, the tank is very tall, so it'll also, even though height, the center of gravity is negative, the positive side is that oil is forcing itself into the front cover. So I'm very happy with that. And then the return line, you have like a froth coming out of here, going back to the tank. And then the tank, of course, now has all this extra air constantly being pumped into it. There's going to be the line on the top going to the vibrant catch can. We have something really secretive planned, but timing's making that crazy. So for now, we're gonna disassemble this very quickly, refresh everything, and then assemble something slightly different. One of those moments where I just feel like truly blessed. I very rarely say that, but because doing this by hand is that painful. Thanks to Valvoline. Even with that oil problem, like running out of oil pressure, look at that. Same thing with these bearings. That took a beating because of the lack of oil pressure, but no copper showing or anything. So this is supposed to thread, and it actually does kind of thread into the middle iron, but all those threads are pulled so it can just pull it out. Maybe a lesson to be learned there. But I got nutserts, time certs, insert, so that won't happen again. That's what I was afraid of. I definitely heated this motor up. I got this thing to like 260, just learning if it could or couldn't. That's what you're gonna get for letting it sit. It overheated, but it didn't blow. Beat the shit out of the motor, see what happens. And this is what happens. That's the hotter side of the motor. Wow. Oh, it's a solid dowel. Okay, that explains why it's like that. I guess I was like, wow, that is not good.
Wow, those coolant seals are trash.
That's from getting that hot.
I've never seen them like that before.
Yeah, I've never overheated or heated the motor that hard.
It held up though. That's.
Yeah, other than if we didn't have that one thread pull out, we wouldn't have had any symptoms of the engine having problems. It's not that they're stuck. I flattened because they got hot. The corner steel springs got hot. Oh.
Did that just?
It was broken in there.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So all the corner steels are well. Look at that. See, they're all there. They're not stuck. It's just that I heated the shit out of this motor. If that doesn't, that's the best ad for Valvoline right there, is that I had 0 PSI of oil pressure going for those multiple laps. Everything's flattened and overheated and rusting. And the engine still ran perfectly fine. The E-shaft is perfectly fine. Everything's great. This should not be the case. This, I think, is going to be the shitty one. Getting this lobe off. We got so close and yet so far last night with getting this to where I wanted it to be. And so now the dream is to be able to use this setup and gently wedge everything against itself and then put that pressure until it pops. Makeshift brace right there. So it gives me plenty of room to hit. We'll find the right length. So it's now got force on this, pulling it out that way. So I feel like if I can just shake it loose. Look at, it's pulling it. This is like a little tool that I think 3 and 4 rotors need. And we're nice and even, consistent pressure on both sides here. There we are. Nothing bad or out of the ordinary. Just put a shit ton of heat to it. So with that front lobe gone, we can now take the intermediate iron off. Since I forgot that I had left a second set of dowels in there, it's easier to separate it right here. So here's rotor 2. All those corner seals. Yeah, I overheated the shit out of this motor, and then having that no oil pressure. Yeah, look at that. One of them broke. You can see very clearly the kind of cause of the thread coming out. And you see they're just trash. So the threads are good about half an inch down. At the very least, that nutsert will help, and then I'll just make sure that I sink this all the way in.
I said, I better get it to you.
You're awesome, man. Nothing quite like the 11th hour. This is the last day that I was holding out for this to potentially happen, and you guys might consider everything I'm doing at the last second kind of crazy, and I agree. Just forgot about customs. That tied us up a week. We are gonna go with a full billet engine on the 3-rotor. This should save a considerable amount of weight. Simon from BilletPro helped make this happen very quickly. We have to do a lot of machine work to the old engine. This fat iron, it's all pitted on the coolant seals, and so it would leak after it would heat up and cool down. What we can do ultimately is put like an epoxy, but again, epoxy it, then machine it back down smooth so it can seal. Then we have no room for this in our place. We have tons of other things that all need to be machined and blocked for the dry sump. Clean these up, clean the E-shaft up, got the rotors all packed, because we were hoping we're either gonna have to rebuild this motor or these. So let's take a look at the plates and why they're gonna be so beneficial. This has a lot of really big reason for being the fat center iron on a 20B. Mazda does actually make these again now, the stock ones, but they're like 7,000, 7,500 bucks for just one plate. And so let's go take a look at how much this one weighs. 216.4. 11 pounds more just in one plate alone. Now the guys actually added a shit ton of weight because of the flat bottom, but that's across the whole car, and we'll be cutting those up eventually before the main race. So we'll drop some of that weight out there, but 11 pounds out of the motor with just one of the plates. All 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 other plates are gonna have similar weight savings. And so this motor just got a lot more light, and the car just got 50-50 weight distribution. Now, this is the next most valuable piece, is, look at that. Wow. I think it was actually Mazzy who worked with them, or has the first one of these. Either way, that's the oil inlet. We can just have an 8AN go to both the regulator and the bearing here, done. 207.4. I'm gonna say 215.
Okay.
Oh, that's 20 pounds saved.
Wow, it's gonna be more than you thought.
Yeah, it'll be like 35 pounds. Real talk for a second. Joel came up with this, but he and I are founding members. We're thinking of making a race team called Thick Boy Racing. All this weight loss and all that, I think that that's just overplayed at this point. So
you just got to be faster.
If you're a thick boy and can beat everybody else, you're better than them. If you guys like that, let us know in the chat. Put a W in the chat. All these things are just threaded and ready to go. So aside from it being billet, it saves me a shit ton of time right now to machine every piece and fuck it all up. Okay, we'll weigh this one real quick. We're at 20 pounds saved. 8 plus 7, so that's 7. So we're at 27 pounds saved. Here is, oh, those are pieces.
Studs. Whoa, they gave us one of those?
Oh shit. Ethan, you're fired. What? So here is the last iron. We can put to rest how much weight difference there is. Beautiful. So the front cover, actually we should see, I'm gonna say 8 pounds for sure on this one. 205.
213.
Okay, there we go. So there's our 35, the bullshit number I was telling everybody, like I think it'll be, I was actually hoping it would be, it's 35 pounds difference from a billet rotary engine, all billet, to the other engine. 35 pounds out of, even though we moved it back, the front of the car. What a crazy difference. So we've doweled some very critical spots. This one in particular is doweled to 16 millimeters. Simon sent me their 1/2-inch stud kit. This is my shortcut. These are actually 1/2-inch to 5/8, which is 4 thousandths smaller than 16 millimeter. See that little bit of wiggle? That's actually really good. The question is, do we machine these out for 16mm dowels, and now we have to get like 16mm dowels on top of these or use something else. No. We do this, tight fit there, we put a ring on it, and then we put the housing on there. The reason why that 5/1000 or 4/1000 matters is because these holes are drilled to my engine desired specs. BilletPro has similar but slightly different, and so that prevents me from having to machine shit. And it'll also give that, you know, a couple thousandths for this to expand, but it really kind of wedge in. So we'll just throw tons of little rings in there, and those will help brace the housings in the spots that matter most. I got 2 of these, but it probably could have used a lot more. Studs all the way around, don't have to machine and mess up their stuff, and we can use our housings. I'm gonna look through all this, and then we're gonna have some fun building a billet engine tonight. This is last second building a BilletPro engine. This is aluminum. The bearing is steel. On the stock engines, they're basically the same material and expand at the same rate. So what I have to do is I have to heat this up to basically operating temperature, even to think about pressing the bearing in, which is currently in my mini fridge right now, getting colder and contracting. So that way, when we press it in, we are not scraping material out. This is more of a heavy-duty interference fit at the right temperature. So I'm trying not to keep this on a spot too long to keep the annealing from happening. But you can see I tested it down here. It's hot. And I have this going at full blast too. I've set this right here to 0. That's what it was before we did all this. And so we're gonna see. Oh my God. That's not movie magic or anything. It's expanded over 1/1000th of an inch just by the heat I've put into it already. And then another thing, being cold enough, it's our best shot for having the strongest bearing possible. I tried keeping the moisture out of it, but here is the main bearing. It's different than the front and the rear. I'm also trying not to hold it and drop this in. If it falls in, that'd be sick. The most important part is there
A little bit.
Oh, yeah. So that's what I was trying to avoid as much as possible. Just so you guys see, that's the reality. That should have got it even hotter. Spicy meatball out of the fridge. Whisper thin. It's material you don't want to lose, but thank you to, there's actually a guy named Steve who saw me talking about this on the 4-rotor, and I would have totally not thought about the temperature interference fit. So I want you guys to know I'm using thread sealant. This is more like PTFE tape. I know what I'm doing. I also know that I have to be on the mountain in less than 48 hours.
Don't do that.
Oops. I'm dry stacking the motor, so we'll skip through this kind of quickly. I'm just gonna put all the bolts onto this, not the E-shaft, and just make sure bolts and dowels all line up, and then we'll look inside and see if the bearings all line up, but that's not that accurate. It's more so, or do we have something hanging up? Okay, so what that tells me, you can't just clean up the threads on the stock housings. I made that mistake apparently. Okay, so the good ones seem to line up.
That's promising.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit easier. I had to come back to the CNC machine. I am going to hit all of these holes with the numbers that match the BilletPro plates. I'm gonna skip these. Obviously, I'm gonna skip these two, but I centered it off of this hole and then located it. It's on a slight angle to this one. I'm curious to see if my marks line up with the places of where it's gonna machine. So with those holes milled all the way through, let's see if it's starting to add up.
Way better.
I've stacked the engine in a very weird way, but for a good reason, to test what I'm about to test. Now this one should just slide on. Okay, so that's good. And you can see it's not centered because of what I just messed up. Because now that we know that these bolts are not centered close to each other from different manufacturers, different versions of things, I'm afraid that these might actually really not be centered. And I can't do anything about it because my dowels are in the place that my dowels are in. That looks pretty promising. So we're gonna see.
Nice.
We're stacking this now. 24 hours to leaving, we're going to build a billet 3-rotor. Obviously well over 1,000 horsepower, but more importantly, lightweight, high heat transfer from all of the additional aluminum to all of the bigger coolers. Keeping that engine colder means longer lap times and better performance. All of that considered, I've dry stacked this earlier today and found a couple problems and issues and fixed those. This looks way worse than it feels. I mic'd it out and it's all so close to each other, but that's the only real victim of the oil going to nothing and doing 2 laps on that. We'll clean those up, probably put some tungsten disulfide on this. If I had a lid, this wouldn't be what I'm reduced to. Just like all of my builds, they start with Valvoline. Now this is the first time I'll be using my Alien Blood, the full synthetic VR1 2050. We're gonna switch over to blue for just 1 or 2 horsepower more, but what that means is 1 or 2 horsepower less of friction, which means less heat. Win, win, win. Sword in the stone. There we go. Now we just build a 2-rotor. Been super particular about the coolant because we're going to be overheating. This car is going to be in some of the most extreme neglect possible. See if from your angle, nothing was hanging down?
Not as far as I could see, but we can double check the tape if you want.
It's Pandora's box. If I open it, I for sure am gonna fuck it up.
I'd rather know than. Yeah, it's solid.
what a weird.
This is gonna be a long engine install.
Yeah. We don't have any of the dowel pieces in the middle rotor. Not a single dowel piece.
Oh shit! I was thinking about that earlier and I totally forgot.
I thought, okay, I'll just slide them all in, but the plates are in between it. This plate just fucked me. I got Isaiah to pick up more of these, so we're just gonna drop them in. 2 into this one. 2 into this one. Completely forgot all that we'd have to do this because the plates, we can't do it from the back. Fuck. That fucking sucks. Fuck yeah. Yeah, we have red Loctite on the racing beat regulator, the oil regulator, because we don't need to repeat lime rock. Time for the flip. This engine weighs 167 pounds, fully stacked without rotors. So each rotor is about 10 pounds plus a couple ounces of seals and stuff like that. So I'm expecting the engine to weigh 197 pounds. These are little baby dowels holding the front together. For all the other ones, these two go in the spark plug hole. Time for the bonus rotor. It's a little tight. I cleaned up both the keyways and everything, something like that. Yes. Okay, and then it's time to finish this. It hurts because we lost all those little dowels for the other holes. It's a whole set of 10 that are missing. So we have nothing supporting that part of the motor, but that is where we are at right now. Every part's been the hardest part, but this is actually going to be the hardest part. We need to get these studs in. Oh yeah, that's already going to be a bitch. But I do get a Baja Blast. I'm like going down to Taco Bell and get me a Baja.
It's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah. Yeah, look at how they're all getting stopped right there.
I heard that. I heard that one.
Doing. That's me when these all go down. Doing.
That could have been worse.
I thought it was actually not going to go. I'll take that. I'll take that. I want the world to see that I'm not a total barbarian. I purposely did not torque them to the bottom. They're just snug to the bottom. Okay, we are ready for torque wrench. There we go. That is a billet 3-rotor short block. That was not easy. The BilletPro stuff is actually pretty easy, but you have to be prepared to use a highly machined piece of equipment. Okay, so this is the inaugural moment of just spinning it over by hand and hearing the lub-dub, lub-dub. Okay, that consistency is what I want. Each of the 3 rotors, each of the 3 faces on each of the 3 rotors, that makes all that hard work worth it. But you know what makes all that hard work worth it even more? Baja Blast. Here's the beautiful transmission sitting out because we have the dummy block out. And it looks like Robert's got the front cover over there. So we're gonna weld a 10AN fitting from the turbo to the front cover of the motor. The Henshaw front cover, because Mr. Henshaw has strong opinions about things, does not have a front ball bearing. I like the conviction, I like what he's trying to do. Does not work for me. There is another solution. So E&J makes a front bearing. So this is a ball bearing. That will help us with somebody accidentally over torquing the alternator belt or whatever the case may be. We can now put the bolt in after that. Now, this spacer is necessary right here. It comes with the kit. Why? When you go to do the front counterweight, you're gonna cleave shit if it was lower. They recessed that right there, which is awesome. So we'll button head these as well, and we can assemble the rest of this front stack while he gets the front cover welded. What I'm gonna do is spin this front, because what I wanna see is I wanna see if the E-shaft is bending or anything like that. This is a used E-shaft, as you know. Yeah, so look at, you can see the bearing doing its job. Nice and consistent circle, distance around it. If we take this off, the same thing. So all good there. Boom. Then this, like such. And this, for looks, you can see that the E-shaft landing is behind the landing on this. So when you go to tighten it, it is tightening this to the E-shaft as intended and tightens the front lobe. Ethan got our X clutch installed. That's looking good.
I love the purple with the billet block.
Oh, that is beautiful. So one of the things I went and did off camera was I took a stone, I flattened this out. The height difference it's still very slight, but way less than it was. I just don't want different torques and all that sort of stuff. So the much smoother. Can we salvage this one? There we go. And there's no tears on the inner lip or outer lip, so I feel good about that. Beautiful. In this case, that's actually going to help keep vacuum in. I'm going to dump a little bit of VR1 in it. There. You drink. There. I guess you'll take some too. All over that. All over all of that.
Nice aim.
Doing it once over, everything looks good. Everything's in the right order. I confirmed it. We're not using any of this, so there's no reason to O-ring that. We're not using this. We're not using any of these parts. This is the moment the short block is basically, get right in there, complete. I feel confident enough to torque the front nut. Full billet, dry sump, front bearing from E&J, semi-peripheral. Honestly, for me, this is one of my dream engines. The all-wheel drive 4-rotor is like hyper reality. This is like everything you work for. Like, this is the best of the best, and it can do the most with the least amount of space. I am so excited to put this with the TIC Performance sequential T56 all together and get it into the car for the final time. That was a little premature. I completely forgot that the oil pan needs to go on, and it's part of this whole assembly, and one of the reasons that we can bring the engine so much lower to the ground. There we are. I think this is a complete engine with wings, and the downside about the wings, we can't rotate the engine. We actually ran 9s and 10s the entire time, and so with this intensity and with this billet engine, I'm going to try running slightly colder plugs. So we're running 10s here and 11.5s, like the 4-rotor up here. We'll see how that affects startup mostly, but once the engine's warm, it's all the same until it starts breaking up because the plugs got too hot.
Going down.
Keep coming, keep coming. Keep coming. So here's the first look at the full, proper race engine in the... Oh my god, that's beautiful.
It doesn't look illegal.
No. That's absolutely beautiful. No matter how good of a welder you are, you can't beat heat. It always messes up, especially on aluminum. You can see stuff just bending as you're welding it. And you can do things to mitigate that, but really for flat, flush surfaces like this, we just have to machine it after. You always plan to kind of take it down a little bit after that. So that's what we're gonna do. I believe since we welded right here, this side has some like very weird waves. I'm gonna go ahead and find like the highest spot that I can go down low and square it up. I have just started to face this down and the very back corner already hit hard. So I just moved it down 5 thousandths. That piece is level in there. It just shows you how, yeah, see how warped that is? There we go. Okay, this is where we're gonna stop because we don't need the last bit of it. We just need the holes. Look at that back notch. And that was already 10,000 more, so that's how bad this was. So this one has never been modified from stock. Yeah, look at that. That was 55 thousandths, and you saw there was a little bit left, but that is irrelevant because it's just the edge of it. So we took that intake manifold down. This notch right here, the keyway on all rotary engines, the way it's facing you, so being to this side of the screen, so your left, means that the engine, rotor 1, is at all the way to the right, so top dead center for the right. So you'll see that if that's completely horizontal to that way, this is slightly off at an angle up here, looking at the mark right there, that makes sense. Well, we're gonna try to turn it over without anybody else knowing, and I just want to see what they all do, because I'm not gonna warn them. We have compression. Yeah, we have a starter that works. Yeah. No, I was like, oh shit, the starter's not working. This is the Alien Blood Blue 2050. It's got amazing amounts of ZDP, zinc, phosphorus. I mean, you can look at all the different stats online. Adding another 1.5 quarts. The oil's just getting pulled out and it's filling up the coolers right now. We're gonna see if the trigger wheel is working. That's what you want right there, is going up instead of it going down. Oh fuck, Nate got it. It was the next one. So we are going to try and start this thing. I've set some basic timing things and we'll see if it fires. Oh my god! I turned it off. I turned it off. That was the first. That was the first fire ever. We got the brap that soon. That's ridiculous. We don't even have coolant in the engine, it's brapping already. You can tell the math is mathing because that's brapping. So it is Friday the 31st. Tomorrow we're supposed to be testing. It's the first testing session for Pikes Peak and we are not going to make it. I messaged Pikes Peak and they thankfully allowed me to move over to the following week. So we have 6 days right now to get ready. So I've bought these guys as much time as I can. These videos are pretty real time. But what you're seeing here is actually literally being filmed the day before we were supposed to leave for testing, and now 6 days before we leave for testing.